and understanding that Washington, D.C. Has the largest number of police intelligence agencies per capita in the world, I'd like to open up by addressing a question to Brother Ahmed from the Pan-African Community Action. You could introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your organization and what is your program? What are you doing currently?
Absolutely. So my name is Ahmed Braxton. My organization is POP, Pan-African Community Action, and our current program that we're focusing on is CCOP. One of our current programs is CCOP, Community Control over the Police, which directly, as you have already spoke about, it directly targets the concept of the police constantly occupying us, and the connection that it holds to the IPIC, the global industry of this, the immense amount of capital that's concentrated in DC, the foothold that America has on the world, based in DC. So our police are also trained through Israel's army, Zionism, so it has a direct connection to Zionism. So our goal with CCOP is to create a community that is rooted in self-determination, to the point where we don't feel the need to even rely on the police when there are situations of conflict. So creating those institutions of conflict resolution, creating our own defense forces so that we are protected from the state. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, okay. That's good. Thank you very much. I just wanted to add that, when maybe people don't understand the amount of intelligence agencies that exist in the Washington, D.C. area. You have the State Department, you have the FBI headquarters, you have the CIA, you have the Justice Department, you have the Pentagon, and you have the Organization of American States. So you're right in the nucleus of the problem, and it literally affects, everything that's happening globally for our people and other colonized people throughout the world. Sister Erica, can you introduce yourself and the organization and what you're doing as well, please?
Yeah, my name is Erica Caines. I am a coordinating committee member of Black Lions for Peace, and I'm also a member of Ujima People's Progress Party. So a lot of what that Baltimore and Ujima, by extension, focus on is the militarization of policing in Baltimore. So to understand militarization of Black communities, which includes the use of SWAT, whose origins are anchored in the takedown of Black liberation struggles in the U.S., it must be understood that Black people here have a colonial relationship with the larger society. So it's a relationship categorized by the over-policing in our communities and institutional racism. So police are used to enforce the status quo of white ruling class power and colonial control over the lives of Black and Brown and other oppressed nations of people. And that's evident in the influx of military policing programs that surround Baltimore City, like the 1033 program, like the Trump-sponsored and pushed Operation Relentless Pursuit. We also have a contract with the IDF through the Deadly Exchange program, and that's also in connection with the push to remove surveillance and the spy planes and such. So there is no longer an official spy plane, but there has always been that sort of surveillance in the city, mostly made known around the time of Betty Gray's murder, where all of the issues of policing in Baltimore sort of came to light, including the militarization of the city. You're muted, Ajamu.
Can we take it to the continent? Brother Ochivera, can you talk to us about what you're doing, your organization with the Revolutionary Socialist League, please?
Thank you, Brother Jamu. My name is Jevara Olunga. I'm a Pan-African revolutionary organizer and activist in Kenya, and also a member of the Revolutionary Socialist League. Revolutionary Socialist League is a vanguard organization, a revolutionary organization based in Nairobi, but with different revolutionary comrades across the country. So what actually we have been doing, our organization is structured into different party cells, and these party cells are within the communities in the major cities like Nairobi, Kisumu, and also we are also based in student cells within the campuses. So basically, the aim of these cells are we use these cells for political education and organizing, and we've been able to use these cells for agitation within the marginalized communities in Kenya and more so in Nairobi, because we are majorly based in Nairobi. So our actions actually have been based trying to agitate our comrades as we try to recruit more and more and bring them through a political education session, whereby we try to organize around different issues affecting our people and more so those in the urban areas. And we use these, for example, the different challenges faced by different people within different areas, like issues dealing with water, issues dealing with extrajudicial killing, femicide, and we try to connect them and tie them to the political situation, because we believe that is only through that rest of the political system in our country that we can be able to liberate our people also economically. So it is through these classes that our comrades have been able to organize, and they continue to organize so that whenever they need any call for political action, they're able to understand the reason why they need to participate in certain actions.
Okay. You know, as a global colonized people that has been dispersed due to slavery and colonialism, you know, we're very familiar with the situations with the pigs in the U.S. Can you elaborate a little bit on the situation with the police, or what issues that you have to deal with, maybe in Kenya?
Yeah, I think basically the police in our country, they behave in not they behave in similar way to the same pigs in the states, because even back here we have a police structure, a system that aims to protect property rights. They protect the properties of the ruling class, and in many cases we see a lot of cases of police violence and brutality meted against the ordinary citizens, and these are things that we always see during elections, even on every day on a daily basis. Like recently during this national lockdown, when the government placed Nairobi under red zone, and there was a lockdown, so the curfew hours was like everybody was supposed to be in their houses by 8 p.m. Kenyan time. I think that is 8 p.m. That I think is around 1 p.m. in the New York time. So you realize that because of different societal needs and the economic situation of our people, it becomes very difficult more so for people in urban centers to be in the house by 8 p.m. because because during such times we find most of them, these people who are the working class, who need to engage themselves on a daily basis to get something to feed their children and feed themselves, were unable to meet certain directives. So we saw the full force of the Kenya police being meted against the people, and we saw a lot of people, them blocking roadblocks and doing a lot of injustice to people. So the pigs in Kenya, if you have to call them pigs, they do not behave in any different way. But now the major problem is, maybe you can say in the States we have a lot of these people being police brutality being meted against people of color and mostly the black people. But here we have a clique of police personnel who are using their brutality against our ordinary people. So it's also a question of to whose interest do the police structures represent. And it's a question we have analyzed deeply, and the relationship between the Kenyan people and the police department is very poor. Because these are people who, instead of protecting or respecting people in whatever, when people try to picket, whenever people try to demonstrate according to their constitutional framework, we see them using a lot of force. And a time came where, for example, the government tried to reform the department and call it the National Police Service instead of National Police Force. But the situation is still the same. We have casualties ranging from different areas in the country, and those people who find themselves living in the marginalized areas, people who find themselves living in the slums or in the ghettos in our community and are very prone to police brutality. We have a lot of people disappearing on a daily basis in these communities, and we're still even also doing follow-up on them. We have a killer police squad that is responsible for a lot of killings in Nairobi, and whenever such happens, we see the system rewarding such personnel. They try to blame the youth, for example, who are also unemployed because of government being unable to provide jobs for people. But then we have a lot of youth, a lot of young women who are also casualties. So the police in our country, they don't behave in anything. They behave in the same similar way to the same pigs in the United States. Their interest is to protect the property rights, the private property of the ruling class. They're not there to protect our people. And it's something that as we going forward, we try to organize, because we also have members of the police department who are very oppressed and also suppressed like other people. So it is through these political classes that we try to raise that consciousness, we try to create that awareness to them and tell them that you may be putting on uniforms, but you and I, there's no difference, because we still belong to the oppressed class. We're still the wretched of the earth of this country. So we need to organize in a political way. We need to involve ourselves in this agitation and organizing platforms so that we may bring change. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think one probably major difference that for the Africans who are in the Americas generally, like in the analysis, that generally the police are viewed as racist because, the police brutality is generally maybe from police officers of European descent, but on the continent, it's Africans police who represent the interest of the capitalists to protect the property and the capitalist interests. So the class analysis is essential, which sometimes we lack that class analysis. Sister Erica, can you elaborate on the 1033 program you stated for those of us who are not familiar with it? You're muted.
Yeah, hold on one moment.
Okay. So she'll be with us in a minute. But as I stated that, in the States, generally police brutality is viewed as a racist phenomenon as opposed to individuals having that class analysis, understanding that the police are a class, whether they're black or white, there to represent the interest of the capitalist class and protect private property for the capitalist and wealthy class. Go ahead, sister, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just making sure there wasn't someone you can hear me from the in the back. So the 1033 program is a program that transfers access military equipment to civilian law enforcement agencies. So this program has been a key source of the most visible big ticket military items being sent to local law enforcement throughout the country. It was originally called the 1208 program, and it was created in 1990 to eliminate military surplus waste following the Cold War, and then also to assist in the federal push on the war against drugs, or the war on drugs, excuse me. And post 9/11, the transfers ramped up, but I don't think the mass public became aware of the 1033 program up until Ferguson, where it became a mainstream conversation because during the uprising, so many people were wondering, well, how did a local police department in a small town hardly anyone ever heard of before Mike Brown get their hands on these type of military grade weapons? So that's when people started to figure out that this has been a long-standing program. And then in 2015, President Obama, after the Baltimore uprisings following Freddie Gray's murder, he was getting a lot of pressure about the 1033 program, so he issued like an executive order to make certain cuts, not to end the program, but just to like make certain cuts and say, well, I guess everyone doesn't need these particular weapons, so we'll just take that off the list. But the program was still active. And then when Trump came into office, he reversed that executive order that Obama put in place. And then when Biden comes into office, he reverses Trump's reversal. So it just basically puts us back in the same position we were when Obama was president, which is to say that the 1033 program still transfers an extraordinary amount of military-grade weapons, not only to the local police departments, but in Baltimore City, Morgan State University has access to these to this budget, and so does Coppin State University. So 2 HBCUs in Baltimore City.
Okay. Hello, you went mute. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if you still wanted me to speak. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. You went mute. Yes, it's fine. Thank you very much, sister. Brother, question for Brother Ahmad. In regarding the programs that you are doing with PACA there in DC, what type of conscious raising programs are you engaged in for the masses of Africans there? You know, because you're right in the nucleus of where everything is happening at, where everything is based at. What type of program how do you raise the consciousness to the community about these oppressive forces that are, you know, in their surroundings?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that question, actually. So PACA also does I want to give a brief rundown on our tools of analysis. So our whole purpose is to organize en masse working class African people and the most impacted of those groups. So LGBTQ and the women being centered around it. In doing so, we in the process of doing that, we do a political education every second and fourth Wednesday, the Sada's Core Study Group, where we talk about different issues related to our struggles, both domestically and globally, in solidarity with different parts of the diaspora and different colonized groups. That's a portion of what we do. In the program specifically, we just had our first community meeting where we're taking in the information about what we should be doing and what the community feels needs to be done in order to improve their conditions. And from there, we will build structurally around that.
Okay. And, you know, seeing that, you know, this seems to be a common threat, obstacle, enemy for our people wherever we are, whether in Kenya, Nigeria, Washington, Baltimore, in Europe or in the Caribbean, Um, should we consider possibly coordinating our efforts on a globalized scale as well? You know, because the enemy is organized globally.
Indeed.
You know, the United States has 800 military bases in 80 countries. You have AFRICOM, where they're in every country, I think, except Egypt. You have, you know, the Mossad or the Zionist training police from from Brazil to South Africa back in the day to, you know, throughout the U.S. as well. So what can we do to coordinate our efforts as organizers so that we can, you know, not only struggle locally, but also internationalize our struggle and our resources that we have? You know, I know our resources might be sometimes limited. You know, the enemy has unlimited resources thanks to capital, them getting in and, you know, the stealing and pillaging of the African continent and resources. What can we do with our limited resources to also intensify our struggle and raise consciousness on a global scale? And that's a question to anyone who wants to answer.
Just with our limited resources, well, this is one example of what we can do. Right, we can start by coming together to share that information. Information is one of the greatest resources. It's not like it's not capital. We understand it's not capital, but it starts the turning wheels for whatever we can grow, whatever we can build institutionally. So we come to these platforms and we trade that information. We learn from each other about the different struggles. We have those political education sessions, and now we are turning different working class people, the people that are a part of our masses that we want to organize. We're turning them on to that these struggles are shared globally. Because while some of us may know this, a lot of us don't. And that causes us to move in certain ways. That causes us to continue to participate in the capitalist and individualist fashion that allows the empire to keep growing and keep thriving.
Sister Erica, would you like to add to that?
Yeah.
If I can clarify more with my question and asking, what can we do to stop IPEC capitalism and imperialism? You know.
Yeah. I unite with what was just said. I also feel like political education is like the first step, right? Organization, like join an organization and political education, primarily because it needs to be understood that imperialism and settler colonialism are not some off the way or simply just a global matter, right?
Right.
There are global matters that are also manifested through U.S. military occupation and our tax dollars, right? And imperialism is also a domestic issue because it's manifested through the occupation of our communities by militarized police forces. So, and this is all remnants of settler colonialism that the U.S. is founded on. And I think that that's one of the key ways that people are able to show solidarity with Palestine because they, on a basic level, they have some sort of understanding of settler colonialism. And then I think that all the propaganda around it has influenced or just raised people's understanding of settler colonialism as far as they can now connect it here and enjoy those connections here. So when we discuss all the power that allowed to police through 1033 programs also, we should be mindful of like the way that policing manifests in the US is not, it doesn't just stop at police. It's the judges, it's the prosecutors. So all of this, so the policing industrial complex, just being able to organize against that or getting people in a position where they can collectively organize against that does in fact lessen a lot of the issues that our comrades on the continent and in the global south would face because we're directly trying to fight from within the empire. But I don't think that ending AFRICOM or even calls for defunding the police or community policing, which are all like calls for self-determination, could be done outside of organized or joining organizations. Basically.
Right. Okay, that's good. Thank you. And Brother Ochiverda, can you maybe add on that and, you know, ask your input on, you know, what kind of issues you're dealing with neocolonialism on African soil?
Pardon, comrade, what's your question?
Would you like to add to that, as well as, you know, maybe give some feedback on the issues that you're dealing with in regards to neo-colonialism on the African continent?
Okay, thank you. Just to add on what Comrade Brother Ahmed and Sister Eric have said, I believe with limited resources, they need to develop international anti-imperialist and capitalist nature. Is very key for us to crush imperialism. And this I talk from the point of trying to agitate, as we have been trying to do back here home, trying to call for the unity of all the oppressed and progressive movements across the globe. If you are able to connect the imperialist tendencies going on in Venezuela, and we connect them with the imperialist tendencies going on in the Congo, it becomes a clear, it gives us a clear guideline on trying to connect the international solidarity in against the imperial powers is very key. Because, as Comrade Ahmed had said, information is power, and we are in a century where we are at liberty to propel the kind of information we want we want to pass along to the people. We are not at the point where the imperialists, with their stronger propaganda, have the ultimate power to propel the imperial propaganda against our people. So I believe that with the information being powerful, I believe that the oppressed people in the world, they need to unite. And there's a unity that cuts across every race, a unity that cuts across every kind of religion. Because it's a unity of the oppressed classes. Is now, as you had mentioned earlier, is a matter of class struggle. And we believe that every change for it to happen, it has to be, there has to be class consciousness. If you're able to raise the consciousness of our people, oppressed people here in Kenya, and we try to make them understand that the same power that is responsible for the operation in the international platform is the same power responsible for oppressing and exploiting our brothers and sisters in the US. So I believe solidarity is very important, and we need also to share information. And with solidarity, it becomes easier for us to agitate at the grassroots level, because we believe that change has to come from the people, because it's only the people who can bring the change. There are no angels, there are no prophets who will bring the change. We believe that it's ordinary people, men and women, who have to work together, organize themselves, and also unite within the frameworks that they work within, and try to recognize and also appreciate different people struggling across the world, be it in Palestine, be it in West Papua, be it in Western Sahara, be it in Colombia, Brazil. We believe that that unity is important. Now, talking about, in your question, asking about the issue of neocolonialism in our country, we have believed, we've seen how neocolonialism, as Kwame Nkrumah used to say, being the last stage of imperialism. We see how imperialists and the former colonial masters have their puppets within the African continent as leaders. We have to discuss, for example, how this neocolonialism is happening in our country, specifically Kenya. We have, in Kenya, we have a president who is, for example, the child of the first imperial neo-colonial leader in Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta. And we see, I see a lot of folks in the US trying to celebrate Jomo Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta was a sellout. So for our people, we don't recognize Jomo Kenyatta. We are in a continent that gave birth to great people like Nkrumah, Cabral, Sankara. So even in our country, we had people like Dedan Kimathi, Piogama Pinto. Dedan Kimathi. So these are the heroes we celebrate. So we're trying to expose Jomo Kenyatta's son, and we find that a lot of the home guards who betrayed the Mau Mau fighters are the same people who inherited the British colonial power in Kenya. And now when the United States came with the dollarism and tried now to take control, we have a battle of between which imperial power are we supposed to lean towards? Are we supposed to go to the US or to the British? So neocolonialism is deeply entrenched in our country. And for number one, is entrenched in all systems, in the educational system, in the military system, in the technological system. We have an education system that our people are propelled, and our people, even in our own country, the kind of history that we are being taught to our people is a colonial history. Is a history that tells us that it was a British guy who came and discovered for us a mountain. So these are the kind of information, the kind of history, the kind of education system that we are trying to expose. And it's deeply reached because you believe the neocolonial powers in this country, together with their few surrogates, they believe in what Malcolm X says that nobody is as dangerous as an African in the European mind. We have a lot of people in our nation who have that European mind. They have been accustomed. They try to emulate the culture of the oppressor. And I don't believe, even when we're always told that when you go to Rome, you try to behave like the Romans. But we have our people who, instead of trying to make the so-called oppressors emulating their culture, we have our people that are trying to emulate the culture of the oppressors. So, as I said, this neocolonialism is deeply entrenched in the education system. The education system in our country needs a lot of change. It's a complete overhaul. The electoral system that we believe in, the electoral barriers that were set by the British, and is something that our people are told to do because Washington, D.C. wants you to do so. Is people are told that London wants you to conduct election in a different way. But then, on whose interest have you conducted these elections for? We have children of colonial home guards. These are puppets, colonial spies. The children still vying for these positions. You come back, for example, to the technological sector, where the media, let's use an example of a media as being totally privatized. But we have people who these are people, for example, who Karl Marx will say that petty comprado bourgeoisie, but we have Africans who are trying to, they have the colonial mentality.
Right.
And when you come to the military structures are still bearing the colonial name. Nothing was changed for our people. And everywhere, if it's either colonial or a European name, is either Kenyattaism and all these surrogates. So neocolonialism is something that we are trying to deconstruct. It's something that we are trying to educate our people from the basic, from the grassroots level. And we are focusing so much with the young people because we are in a country where the median age is 19 years. And if you are a population of 54 million people and half of it is less than 19 years, then it shows you the interest. The future of our country lies in the young people. And it is in that space that we are trying to utilize. It is in that age group. And we are not trying to say that we are not operating or organizing with the older people of our country. But we're saying that we organize with older people who also believe in a new African identity. Africa that abhors and an African that does not try to celebrate any form of colonialism or neocolonialism. So it's something that we try to expose every day, and it's something that we are living by. But we believe that through the extreme political education, we are trying to combat this right-wing propaganda and the neocolonial mentality. Because we believe that for us to move forward, we don't need to behave like the British colonizers. Neither do we need to behave like the few Africans or the few Kenyans who are behaving or are trying to emulate the colonial power. Colonialism is something deeply rich in Africa, not only in Kenya, and I think it's a mechanism that we have to address.
And that's probably, yeah, that's the importance of having revolutionary political education, so that we gain analysis and that we end up having an understanding of who we are as a people, who our enemy is, what our objectives are, that will move us forward. You know, we understand that the youth are the spark of revolution, but they need the right ideology. They need the right revolutionary analysis for them to be able to move the struggle forward. Thank you very much, brother. What I want to do, I do have a question. Someone asked, can we defeat the enemy non-violently? You know, is that a strategy? Is that a tactic? Yeah. So that's a question that someone asked. Can we defeat the enemy non-violently? Sister Erica, Brother Ahmed, you want to tackle that?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a possibility. We're at war, right? And we're under violent attack. If I can talk about one city that's a majority African city that's surrounded by all brought on by military policing, there's no way that we could peacefully combat that. Our best solution is to organize our own self-defense programs and such, and utilize that. And that's not to say, you know, go out and attack, but we should be very well prepared to fight back. And I don't think that there's any possibility of any nonviolent way to go about that, because we're facing violence every single day.
Definitely. Brother Ahmed, would you like to add to that?
I definitely would like to add to that, and I echo it. So first of all, there are so many forms of violence that aren't even actual physical violence. There's medical violence. There's neglect in the form of violence. There's the food that they put in our communities. That's a form of violence. We have all of these different existing forms of violence around us daily. The very fact that they occupy our neighborhoods is a form of violence. So there is no way to non-violently attack a system that came off of a ship 400 years ago.
Right. But you broke up. I didn't hear the last part.
Oh, I said there's no way to attack a system non-violently that's been beating you from a ship since you came off of a ship 400 years ago. It's not possible. And then you would add in and factor in the global aspect of it. Nah.
Right, and I think that sometimes, you know, a lot of us, I ask the question because sometimes, you know, I know that specifically in the United States, you know, Dr. King had that principle of practicing nonviolence, but for us, it's a tactic. You know, if nonviolence works, good, but if it don't work, then we have to change the tactics to do something that's going to be more effective. What I like to do is I like to open up the questions to our participants. If anyone has any questions, you can type your question in the Q&A or in the chat area, and I'll read them off to the panelists, and then we'll all address them. We have one question that says, how do we address the very real issue of domestic violence against Black women by Black men, which is causing many Black women to divest from Black men in demand, like popular Black film YouTubers? We keep the prison industrial complex to protect Black women. So would anybody like to address the domestic issues that, you know, are taking place, particularly, you know, during this COVID pandemic? You know, tensions are high, you know, I guess people are confined, and violence seems to be on increase more than ever. Well, sister, please.
Yeah, so being advocates for community control of police, you get that question a lot, right? Because what does it mean to control the community when the community itself is dealing with interrelationship violence? I don't think that there's a way to cleanly answer that question, and I think that people are looking for a clean, concrete answer. I think that what we should be doing is struggling with one another and understanding where the violence is rooted in, right? Because we're talking about being colonized communities, right? Or we're talking about being internal colonies, but that also includes our mindsets and how we deal with one another, and how we deal or approach gender relations, and how we approach interpersonal relationships. I mean, because we could discuss Black men and Black women, but we could also discuss Black youth, Black women and Black women, Black men and Black. There's an intercommunal situation that's happening that's developed through a lack of understanding that this is not innately a Black or African issue. And I think that people make it like this is innately something that Africans have to overcome because we are innately violent towards one another. And I don't think that that's the case at all. I do believe, though, that what we are seeing is very not only reactionary, but it's being pushed by a specific sector of people who they do turn back and run into the prison industrial complex as a solvent for anything. So it could have been interpersonal violence, or it could be dealing with drug dealers, or any situation. They are upholding because that's the only thing that they know. And I think that things like transformative justice and restorative justice gives us the opportunity gives us the opportunity to sort of look into other alternatives besides policing, and transformative and restorative justice forces us to confront the violence head on. And I think what people are doing is evading confronting it, or evading struggling about the very real violence that's faced in communities.
Would anybody else would like to address that? Ahmed or Chibetta?
Yeah, we're getting questions about, I guess, people who are viewing this would like to respond to some of the questions and stuff that are being asked. And I wanted to say, I think we can do that, but we're, pardon the pun, we're policing ourselves here.
Yes.
So if people want to make a comment, they should raise their hand. I will keep a stack, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. I would say also that people are not limited to questions. They can make comments, but keep those comments short and brief so we can include as many people as possible and get as broad a perspective on the issues as we can. Finally, and I'm taking a privilege of being the host, to chime in with what Sister Erica has raised. The greatest defense against the violence in our community is conscious human beings in our community. We're not willing to accept violence as a way of resolving conflict, or of interacting with our mates, or of dealing with our children. Revolutionaries don't accept these things in their presence. And the more revolutionary consciousness exists in our community and among our people, the more we will be able to combat these kinds of problems as they arrive. This is not something you solve once and for all. This is the social meaning of the revolution that we are engaged in. And if you understand the struggle that our people are involved in, and you come face to face with exploitation, oppression, or violence, or racism, or patriarchy at any level, as a revolutionary, it is your responsibility to address it and to deal with it in an organized, objective way. So the ideological struggle, the political education, has to go beyond us who are conscious and penetrate our community and become a driving aspect of our culture. Now, that's the end of my thing. I will take the stack, and if people want to make a comment or ask a question other than what you get from the chat, I'll try to keep track of the hands and acknowledge people as they come up.
Okay, thank you very much, brother. I'm seeing comments. Are you reading up from? Because I'm seeing in the chat. But are you seeing any questions in Facebook? Well, I'll read this question that I have right now. Brother Cliff asks, what is the potential for us to finally develop a Pan-African cooperative coalition or united front? Or various organizations constantly speak out about the need for us to unite, but too often the term unite under us, and that let us come together to form a cooperative coalition without the pecking order that accompanies the traditional organization. So what is the potential for us to finally develop a Pan-African cooperative coalition or united front? That's to anyone who wants to address that.
We have a hand. I don't know who the person is, but they call themselves Peace Soul Radio. I think they might want to respond.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? This is Brother Maitho. I know Brother Jamu just asked a question, though. He read off Brother Cliff's question. I didn't want to jump in before you got the proper response to that.
Oh, I thought you was going to answer that.
Okay.
I wanted to respond to an earlier question that was put forth, but I want to let Brother Cliff get his question addressed.
So would anyone like to respond to Brother Cliff's question? What is the potential for us to finally develop a Pan-African cooperative coalition or united front?
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, and I would also like to respond to another question from JB. I think to respond to Brother Cliff's question on the potential for Africa to develop a Pan-African cooperative coalition or a united front, I believe is Africans we have the potential to develop a united front, and I think it still goes back to the call for a united Africa. But this call for this united front for Africa has to be developed by brothers and sisters, the daughters, sons of Africa, and also those within the African continent, and also those who believe in the African unity. Because I believe I believe is not the cooperation of from the capitalistic understanding, because the potentiality of Africa lies in the numerous factors that unite Africa, because we are the things that unite us as Africans or people of African descent are so many that the few things that divide us or keep us apart. So I believe that potential we have it within the different social development of African people, in the social and the social upbringing of African people. And I believe that unity is based on a different model than the one that exists today. Is a model that, for example, we may try to cater for respect the will, respect the human dignity and existence of African people. And just before I stop, there's also another question that I think Comrade JB had directed it to me. Where he was asking how we Africans are struggling for the issue of nationalism. We believe that the issue of nationalism in this century, we call for a Pan-African, revolutionary Pan-Africanism. Because I believe it's a revolutionary Pan-Africanism that encompasses the class analysis of our people. In many cases, we find nationalism as being an abstract issue or a bourgeois analysis where few pressers within a certain nationality find the room to oppress or to continue the imperial exploitation of our people. For example, we'll have to take people, let's say, for example, Kenyans. A Kenyan will say that you have to unite in the Kenyan nationality. But remember, this unity does not have a class basis. This unity is based mostly on the economic interest of the ruling class, who may be threatened by foreign powers trying to dominate within that area. Because if we define nationality with these colonial borderlines, that we're being told that you are a Tanzanian, you are a Nigerian, then you uniting as a Nigerian, it means that you will not have to understand the conditions of a Cameroonian or a Algerian and unite with him or her. So in our understanding and in our philosophy, we believe that this century we need revolutionary Pan-Africanism. It is now that the national, international understanding of our different struggles and also on who are we able to unite with. Because in this kind, if you start talking about nationality, we'll have people who will tell you that even Mobutu Sese Seko was a nationalist because he came and told people, let's abandon Belgian names, and he renamed himself Mobutu Sese Seko. He named the cities Zaire. But remember, he was still capitalist in nature. So in the revolutionary Pan-Africanism is anti-capitalist. Because I believe nationalism in its essence in this century is not anti-capitalist. It's a matter of business interest or capitalistic interest of different people trying to unite with their same class within their own national spheres. But then, as a matter of their own interest, but not on the interest of the oppressed people, I believe. And I think this is the internationalism that Goma talked about, Sekou Toure, that also Malcolm X believed in the formation of the Afro-American organization.
Thank you very much, brother. Brother Piso, can you please ask your question? The floor is yours.
Okay, greetings, Africans. Can you guys hear me well enough? All right, my name is Maitho, and I'm actually coming out of Ohio. I'm in the work study out here through Brother Zizwe, Brother Jossie, and some of the other comrades. So it's an honor to be here in the study. I wanted to address the question earlier about, I think that you may have asked, Jamu, about how can we be more effective in accomplishing what we're trying to do in our revolutionary aspirations. And I just want to say, from my background in media, I think that we need to we need to put a lot more emphasis and priority in consolidating, developing a network of propaganda. You know what I mean? Because we know that the party stresses political education, but I think it's time that we really step up our efforts in terms of how well and effectively we're delivering the message and the studies and all of the other information, the propaganda. I think that there needs to be like a consolidated network, a real network, so that we're able to get news at any time. We can tune into this network and get news, get radio, get commentaries, get our culture, get access to documentaries, films, etc. I know there are a lot of individuals, even some of the comrades in this session here, that are doing great work in terms of utilizing the social media, but they're isolated, in my opinion. Like, they have great individual efforts, but I think that we need more of people know to go to ESPN for sports. You know what I mean? We need a network that Africans globally can tune in and that keeps us connected that keeps our information fresh one to another, that allows us to stay on track. And I'll be short really quick. Yeah, if we could get those together, and I think it needs to, another thing that needs to be stressed is the importance of not only understanding the latest technology, but really making an effort in terms of the quality of our presentation and our production. It makes a difference. I mean, just the apparatus itself, in terms of the way the ruling class utilizes media to divert our people, our young people, away from revolutionary consciousness, away from the struggle. They're very creative in using the media and their propaganda. And we have to put that kind of emphasis into our own deliverance about our information, our propaganda. We need to invest into these things. We need to have like standards of production, and we can have collective training. Those who have skill sets, whether it's graphics, whether it's video editing, whether it's audio recording, and let's train together. Let's teach each other how to up our game, how to up our production. So if we're doing a video, we don't have all of these technical difficulties that make people come in and just check right out. You know what I mean? We have to put, so anyway, I don't want to keep filibuster here, but I you can see I have a little passion in the media aspect. Yeah,
we need you, brother.
Yeah, oh, I'm here too. I want to be.
Definitely. We do understand, you know, the enemy works 24/7 in keeping us unconscious, you know, and they have a limited resources. So, you know, we're trying to pull our limited resources together to do the best to our ability. But I do agree with you. We do need to intensify our struggle. We do have publications and some media outlets. You have Hood Communists. You have the Black Agenda Report. You have a couple of people in the party doing webinars. So, you know, they're trying to use the best resources they can with, you know, to the best of their ability. But of course, I agree with you, it's totally limited. And it's not as effective maybe because, you know, you can have two sisters come out and do a video that gets 1 billion views on called WAP. And that just totally makes everybody want to be unconscious, you know. So that's a challenge. And I want to go to our next comment or question.
John, before you move on, can I just respond to that?
Yes, please do.
Because Rebecca sort of asked a question that's similar to what Piso was discussing. Hold on 1 second. So sorry, it's a whole lot going on. Rebecca was asking, like, what do we do about capitalist media? And I think that that's something that we also need to take in consideration. Like, for instance, right now there's a Black Power Media, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with that station on YouTube, but it's plenty of members with the AAPRP and BAP and other coalitions like Community Movement Builders, and they created a channel where from every day there's new segments, there's hosts, there's different people who's directly involved with organizing. They even have a morning show now. And I point that out to say that, you know, they still do work with Hood Communists, they still do work with Black Agenda Report. Like there's a building of a conglomerate that's forming. But what happened with Hood Communists being on Twitter and then being taken off, like, that's my concern about the media conglomerate. Like, we can build these independent spaces, but we don't own the servers and we don't own the network, you know, so they can only sustain for so long. So
and that's the problem.
Yeah, and all that does is recircle back to we need to be meeting people door to door, face to face, like before, because these things give limited options. Even though I do totally agree that we do need to, like, propaganda needs to be on our side. Like, we can't make propaganda like a bad word. We need to be utilizing propaganda.
Right. Thank you, sister. Let me see if there's any other questions. I have.
I had a comment, and I see.
I'm sorry, who?
I saw Neph's hand, Tamilo, and Zizwe.
No, I put my hand down. I don't need it.
Okay, I think Brother Z made a comment.
Oh, it's my turn?
Yes, Brother Zizwe, go ahead.
I think the key to all of this is organization. Organization decides everything, as Kwame Nkrumah said. When Marcus Garvey was organizing, I'm sure the media, the campus media was not on his side. But yet he managed to build the largest organization that we know of, at least in this hemisphere. What it's going to take is committed cadre to do the work with the tools that we have available until we get some liberated territory where we can set up the instruments, the apparatus, etc. This is why it's so key for us to have a liberated territory in Africa. And this is why the enemy destroyed the liberated territories in Africa and or put pressure on them so that they could not operate like a truly Pan-African liberated territory. That's why it's an intense struggle in Guinea-Bissau to make sure that the PIGC does not attain power. That's why there was an intense struggle to sanction Zimbabwe. That's why the enemy got his forces together and got those neocolonial puppets in Africa to agree to a no-fly zone to overthrow the government of Libya, which could have been a base for us to do the things that people are talking about, creating wire services, etc. There are some Pan-African wire services in existence right now, but they might not be pushing the revolutionary line. So I think the key to the whole thing is mass organization. We have to have worldwide organization. We had it before. We had the organization consolidated with the peoples of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. It might still exist. I think Imani told us about that. And we've had, we tried to build a worldwide African anti-Zionist front. It barely got off the ground. So we are capable of building international organization. Malcolm X was coordinated with Kwame Nkrumah, and he formed the OAAU. It's not impossible. It's just a matter of organization and coordination. And that's what we have to work on, because it definitely has to be on an international level.
Definitely, yeah.
But it has to be based on liberated territory now. Thank you very much. Ready for revolution.
Ready, forward. Tamilu, you have a question? I see your hand is up.
No, thank you very much with the opportunity.
Okay.
Well, I want to be the devil's advocate. You asked the question earlier there, what can we do to neoliberalism and imperialism and IP? Well, they are forward with everything. So I don't see us overcoming them in terms of since they are having resources. You spoke about the different departments there, that there is FBI, CIA, and others there. So they are well organized. So I don't see us overcoming them. I know that I might be maybe my pessimism is the one that is maybe talking here, but I think if you can't beat them, join them, because I mean, with regard to resources, I mean, we African people and African American, they don't have a lot of a hand in participation in the economy. I mean, if we don't have anything, how can we wage a struggle of overcoming them? I mean, there is no way. There's no way. But it's my take on that. And I want to ask Erika about in the US there, they have passed a bill of Asian hate crime bill, which protects the Asian there. And in America, a lot of African Americans, they are killed almost on a daily basis. But we hear the bill just being passed. What about the African American who are killed each and every day? Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, brother. I would just like to comment on you, or make a comment in regards to your statement about us not necessarily having the means to overcome the enemy. And I think that you underestimate a people's will. You know, a people's will is a force that is unstoppable. And, you know, I think that history has shown us that if it wasn't for, Africa would still be under colonial rule. We would still be under bondage, if Africans didn't have the will to overcome these yokes. So although the obstacles might be large and they look, very powerful, but I think that once the masses come to the conclusion that they want to be free and that they want to overcome the yoke of any form of oppression, it's going to happen. David slew Goliath. So I don't necessarily put any idea that it's something that can't be done, because we're going to do it and we're working every day to do it. But thank you for your comment. And Sister Erica, do you want to respond to his comment in regards to the Asian hate bill that was instilled maybe a couple of weeks ago there, and nothing regarding the African Americans that are killed daily,
Right. So the anti-Asian racism or hate bill, or I'm not really sure the name, but it's just proxy or plain cover for more policing. It's not actually anything that's going to address significantly anything that's happening with Asians, because if the U.S. was actually concerned, then they would lessen their militarization on the Indo-Pacific Command.
Right.
The U.S. is kind of, they have a military presence in almost all of Asia. So if they were really concerned about, Asians, they would leave Asia. So this is not anything that is. I think what it is doing, though, is causing a division that we already started to see manifest more last year between the Black community and Asian community by juxtaposition or placing them or pitting them against one another. But what Black people or Black Americans or Africans in this country need to understand is that any bill like that, even if it was positioned for us, would hurt us. It's a bill advocating specifically for more policing. And we are combating different levels of policing alone. You talked about DC, and I spoke about the different and many programs that are in Baltimore City. I mean, we could talk about NYPD and directly being involved with Tel Aviv. So we already have a policing issue. What we don't want is more policing. So that's not something that's going to help Asians either. And it's probably going to end up criminalizing us more, because the only hate crimes that they're focused on are the ones between colonized communities, and white people are literally being left off the hook despite the murders that they're committing of Asian people. They're looking at the little petty crimes and petty assaults that's happening in between these marginalized communities, which then that gives them a reason to use the police and argue against the funding police and argue against community control of police or argue against abolition, because they could say, see, look at all this crime that's still going on and this is why we need it. But there's no concern for the Asians any more than there's any concern for Africans in America.
This is divide and conquer.
Right.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. I'm going to close the questions and answers. I just wanted to read a last comment from Brother Imani in Guinea-Bissau. He says, we of the AEPRP are struggling to construct a mass revolutionary, all African People's Revolutionary Party, and are a proud ally with Black Alliance for Peace in an attempt to bring organizations together on a global scale with revolutionary ethos. Unity presupposes organization. Thank you, brother. I see another comment I will read quickly. Someone spoke about, Sister Rebecca talked about the Haitian Revolution, and so many other examples show the will and power that oppressed masses have. And this is why the ruling class propagandises us to believe that we don't have power. You must know our history, and this is why political education is important. And to Brother Timasu, who made the comment about questioning, I suggest you read this book. because this is kind of details that exactly that, you know, the Haitians being the first African nation of ex-slaves who overthrew capitalism and imperialism in 1804, January 1st. So they did it with their limited resources, but the will was strong enough, so it can be done. I want to thank you all for your comments and answers. And we will go into, I figured we have a cultural presentation or?
Yeah, we have a cultural presentation and some closing remarks. So
okay.
I'm going to try to share the screen again.
Good luck, brother.
We keep on fighting. We keep on fighting. When domination.
I like that.
Marching to the hills, mountains, crossing any street. We're moving to the north, west, south, and east. Resistance is our foes. That would let them bring their woes and serve humanity with equity. We break down walls of oppressions, lock doors of dominations, set the captives free and living free. Even though the battle is hot, we keep fighting without retreat. We defeat the enemy. Even though the battle is hot, we keep fighting without retreat. We defeat the enemy. We keep on fighting. When domination, we keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting. When domination, we keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting. We fight hard blows, you know. Take our lands, we know, to make sure we all reap from what we sow. We fight for African unity, each according to ability. Western and access to be living with dignity. Even though the battle is on, we keep fighting without retreat. We defeat the enemy. We keep on fighting. When domination, we keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting. When domination, we keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting. Millions of living people, millions of the food to raise, for job, for job, for job, for job. Millions of living people, millions of the food to raise, for job, for job, for job. We keep on fighting. When domination, we keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting.
Sorry.
When domination, we keep on fighting for true liberation. We keep on fighting. Far right. Rebel music.
It's time on the mix.
So we would like to thank everybody for joining us in our program today. If you watch the video, there were many Africans who have fought to liberate our people, our continent, to unite us. And every single person pictured in that video had to combat the industrial police military complex. Every single one of them was attacked by the industrial police military complex and actively fought against the industrial police military complex. We in the All African People's Revolutionary Party are convinced that the armed phase of the African Revolution has not ended and has not been completed, and that our people must be prepared to engage in a serious ongoing struggle, which may take the form of armed revolutionary action. But the condition for this struggle to be waged is the organization of our people and the political, military, and ideological coordination of our organizations coming together in a concerted effort on a worldwide scale to fight a worldwide enemy. We in the AAPRP are members of a worldwide Pan-Africanist front, and we invite all organizations to join that front, to participate in that attempt at bringing us together so that we can coordinate our work to defeat capitalism and imperialism. We are not here. We are not trying. We will put no energy in an effort to reform the system that's responsible for oppressing and exploiting us. Our liberation is a consequence of an antagonistic struggle. There are forces that are operating in the world we live in, and these forces are antagonistic. That means that there are irreconcilable differences between the masses of our people and the capitalist system. There is no middle ground where we can come to agreement with imperialism, Zionism, racism, or the patriarchal oppression and exploitation of our women, and the oppression and exploitation of our people. And the liberation of Africa is intricately and intimately tied to the liberation of humanity. Our people are part of a worldwide effort to end this capitalist oppression of our people and despoilation of our planet. And the first thing, one of the main things we have to do in order to get the victory we seek is understand our enemy, the industrial police military intelligence complex, and understand capital, which guides that complex to oppress and exploit the masses of our people and the people of the world. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. I'm going to try now to open up all the mics. Everybody can unmute. How about that? Everybody can unmute and join us as we say, hey, hey, Mr. CIA, hands off.
Hey, Mr. CIA.
Hey, hey, Mr. CIA, hands off. Africa. Hey, hey, Mr. CIA, hands off. Africa.
South Africa.
Ready for the revolution?
Ready for revolution.
Thank you very much. Viva!
Whatever.
That
was never.
Africa.
Africa will be free.
I want to see all of y'all, so I'm going to change my view. You can turn your cameras too. Look at us. Thank you, Africans.
Wash your hands.
Brother Lonnie.
Revolution comrades. Oh, he's my turn.
Somebody has some good music. All right, thank you. This is the end of our African Liberation Day activity. We will invite you all to join us again for a program that we're organizing for Kwame Ture's birthday at the end of June, and forward ever, backward never.
All right. Thank you. Free the land. Amen.
Free the land. Free the land. Yes.
Free the land.
The youth is our future. Yes.
He's with Lake too.
Yeah.